Welcome everybody. Happy Friday. Well, first off, thanks so much for coming, and Oklahomans, thanks so much for joining in for our press conference. I think it's so important that we all understand the issues happening at the Capitol that are affecting our state, and that's why I brought a couple of billboards. Just wanted to open real quick with where we're at as a state. We're in a fabulous situation, fantastic. This is my 5th year here, and Oklahoma is in a fantastic shape. We're top 10 right now in people moving to our state. Our economy has never been better. And so let's start over here. So our base level expenses in our budget process is $9.6 billion. That's what we spent last year in base level expenses. Today, I'm proud to announce to Oklahomans that we have $6.1 billion in savings. And I'll be happy to actually share that with the media on exactly where that comes from. And not including our savings, so you have $6.1 billion in savings. We have $1.2 billion surplus. In other words, our revenue over reoccurring expenses is $1.2 billion. So the time is now to cut taxes. And if I go back to my State of the State address, I talked about eliminating the grocery tax. The most regressive tax that we do in Oklahoma is the grocery tax. And we're one of only 12 states that taxes groceries. That hurts people on the lower income much more than the higher income brackets. And we are dealing with inflation, that everything seems to be costing moms and dads that are raising kids more, and I want to eliminate that. I also called for an elimination, a reduction of the state income tax, to drop it 0.76% to get us down to a 3 handle. That this year would cost us $261 million. It's tax day next Tuesday. This is the front of mind for every single Oklahomans. Corporate tax. We want to continue to be the most business-friendly state. I wanted to lower that in my State of the State by 75 basis points to keep the momentum going, to let every company know that they need to be located in the state of Oklahoma. And let me tell you, when we get our economy going, it helps everybody. It helps education, roads and bridges, healthcare. It helps wage growths. And so we have to get this done. This would be a $655 million in this budget, is what we would lower revenue. And after all, it belongs to the taxpayers anyway. I believe in smaller government. I believe in lower taxes. Now is the time. I just signed a bill yesterday that I'm so proud of. The legislature had passed a bond back, I think, around 2017, 2018, $58 million bond. That means we were going to borrow $58 million to build a new health lab. We were able to do it through some different cash flow, and so we canceled that bond this past week, and we saved the taxpayers from going in debt $58 million. So we will always protect the taxpayer as long as I'm governor, and I'll open it up now to some questions from the media.
Is this in response to the Senate kind of saying the House wanting tax cuts in order to pass the incentives for a nail, and the Senate saying we're not going to really cut taxes?
You know, I mean, whether it's in response to that or not, I mean, this is something I've been talking about. Last year, I called the House and Senate in for a special session because we had a budget surplus last year. Think about this for a second. What do Oklahomans want us to do? We have $1.2 billion surplus right now. Do we just raise expenses by $1.2 billion? Because to remind everybody, we have invested $3.1 billion over the last couple years in just new money. ARPA and CARES money we've invested in water infrastructure all over the state of Oklahoma. So do we just raise expenses by 1.2? Do we throw that into savings and have $7 billion next year? Do we do a combination of that? We have to give tax cuts back to the consumer. So yes, I applaud the House has sent me several different tax cuts over to the Senate. The Senate is wanting to do some kind of reform. But as governor, let's come together and let's figure this out. I think the House and Senate need to get that on my desk.
One last question on that. What have the negotiations been like? It seems like there's been zero movement legislatively, willingness of leaders to hear tax cut bills. I mean, what has the negotiation been like?
You know, I mean, it's April here in this building right now, and you know, specifically, you'll have to talk to the speaker and the pro tem about those negotiations. We just have to get it done. I need Oklahomans to understand we have plenty of money to do a tax cut back to the consumer. We have plenty of savings. I will never cut I'll never cut the revenue down to where it eats into reoccurring expenses. Okay, so we'll never put our citizens in a bad situation. But right now, we need to get this across the finish line.
Governor, can you elaborate on how you got to the $6.1 billion?
Yeah, and I'll be happy to share this with you guys. But you've got a bunch of different buckets. But you've got the Constitutional Reserve Rainy Day Fund that's already maxed out. I'd like to get a bill back to the people. It would be a vote of the people to increase that rainy day fund because we're already capped out there. So we have a lot of free cash flow coming through. We got 2021 general revenue where we spent less than we had, so we have that rolling over free cash. We have 2022 general revenue, and we have $1.1 billion. We're already above estimates this year at $882 million. In above our what we estimated revenue to be, so that's going to be free cash flow next year. We have enhanced FMAP money from the feds that the Healthcare Authority has done a really good job. That is $540 million. We have we've got the 698 lead fund in cash flow, and I'll give you that whole breakdown. We have the Revenue Stabilization Fund at $400 million. When you add all that up, it comes up to $6.171 billion.
So are you anticipating that, I know the LEAD Act money reverts back to the General Revenue Fund tomorrow or on Sunday, and are you anticipating that we're not going to be spending that money to bring economic development to the state?
Well, that's not exactly true. We have a signed contract on that, and I think Commerce will be the legislature knows that. We have a signed agreement with Project Josie that encumbers that 698. So now we're just working on the development agreements. It's a great news, which hopefully you asked me about. It's the largest economic development in state history, but it's gone through their board. They've officially signed off on that lead fund to encumber that, to say we're coming to the state of Oklahoma. So that's exciting.
Josie is the former name of Project Commission.
Correct.
Are all the incentives in place already that they need, or does there some other request the legislature needs to work on?
Yeah, there's a $245 million economic development site work, roads, that the legislature will be part of appropriating or finding the way to get that. But when you build it's a 5 million square foot building under roof. It's one of the largest in the country. Just an amazing project when you see it. But you need infrastructure, you need roads. So there's a few little T's to cross and I's to dot to get the correct egress, ingress into those facilities. A few maybe daycare centers, a few more fire stations. There's some community investments that the legislature would probably make to put that over the finish line, and I think we're saying that tag is about $245 million. It's not money that goes to the company. It's more site prep and it's more infrastructure around the development of that type of a project.
So that needs to come from the legislature itself. Or we asking the same thing,
I was going to ask if it's a done deal. I mean, is Project Ocean coming, or is Project Ocean? Is it a done deal? Is Project Ocean coming to Oklahoma, or is this contingent on somebody coming up with $245 million extra beyond the $698 million?
Well, what I can tell you is they have signed the lead agreement saying that it's their intention to come. They're planning on coming. When they're investing, it's about a $5 billion investment. And when they're doing those kind of things, there's development agreements, there's site work, there's infrastructure, there's commitments that they have to have from the state. And so, yes, there's going to be a commitment. The legislature will have to figure out a way to spend this $245 for either through ODOT or through the Mid-America site to get that site ready. But those are all things, those are details that I'm confident. I've spoken with the legislature. Again, we can use some of this 6.1 billion. And when I think about a use of these funds to make a project like this happen that's generational for Oklahoma, it's the right thing to do. It would be amazing for our state.
Did the Mid-America site get any of the prep funding that went to kind of some of the industrial parks around the state? And could it be used for that?
You know, we've talked about that. We did some prep funding in Tulsa, about $50 million to start developing a new site just there in Catoosa. We did some prep funds down in the Ardmore site. We did some down in Ada on their airport. So we had $250 million in prep funds around the state. Specifically on ARPA, I don't think any ARPA money went to the Mid-America site. Somebody can verify that. But that's also a use. There's still a little bit of ARPA money left, and we could, if it falls into the guidelines, we could use some of that for that.
Can I ask what changed now? I mean, a year ago, Project Ocean was on the finish line, and then they chose Kansas. What changed now? Why does Project Ocean or Panasonic want to come to Oklahoma now versus a year ago? What's different?
Well, there was never, Project Ocean has never told us no. They've always had a two-state strategy. They also have to wait on demand for their product, et cetera, et cetera. And their steel's going up, I think, right now in Kansas, their sites. They started working there. And they've always had a two-state strategy. And as a matter of fact, I've talked to some of their executives, and to meet the demand that they're seeing just from their product, they think they'll have to create two more manufacturing sites over the next decade. So Oklahoma, we're in a great position, and so I don't want us to think like, man, they told us no, or they left us at the altar, or anything like that. Until we get a deal signed, like we have now with the LEAD Act, we were going to continue to show that site, and as you know, we were showing it to another large manufacturing facility that ended up going to Canada. But these guys were always there kind of talking to us saying, hey, we're still planning on a second site.
Clarifying, so the deadline that we were expecting to come up this week for the LEAD Act funding, April 15th, that deadline is no longer a concern? Is that what you're saying with the signed agreement that is coming?
Yeah, that's our position. You know, you can interpret that LEAD Act a bunch of different ways, and I've heard some scuttlebutt that it's not a guarantee, or there's a couple outs. But listen, on $1 billion contract, most attorneys and most big corporations investing billions and billions of dollars, they're still, hey, this has to happen, this has to happen. There's a couple of little things like that, but it's our opinion, and I think it's Commerce's opinion, that these guys want to come. They have committed to coming. They have run it through their board. They have signed this agreement. And yeah, now we're talking about development agreements, timing now. It's my understanding it's going to take about 15 months for the site development, and then they'll start. So this is something it's a positive thing for Oklahoma. These type of investments don't come around all the time. We need to take advantage of this for the state of Oklahoma. The diversification play here is unbelievable. This past week, I just met with another bond rating agency, and one of the biggest comments, they were here in Oklahoma. I met with Moody's and Fitch and S&P, and they said, Governor, great job on diversifying your economy. Keep that going. We don't see the bumps and the ups and downs in your revenue right now because you've done a great job with aerospace and defense, and we love your oil and gas industry. Well, they didn't say they love our oil and gas industry, but I love our oil and gas industry. But they said, hey, by diversifying, you're spreading that out, and if there's a down in this area and you're growing in this area, that's a good thing. And so we want to keep that momentum going.
Just this would be for the same thing that they originally came, that battery plant at Mid-America. Is it going to be for a smaller battery plant? Because I know they have one just up the road in Kansas. So what would they be building in Mid-America?
Now it's 5 million square feet under roof, and really I'm not at liberty to we call it Project Josie, so we're not going to name the company's name, but it's a 5 million square foot facility. It's going to be amazing. It's going to employ 3,500 Oklahomans, and then you think about the supply chain. Our analysis, when you have a manufacturing facility with 3,500 employees, it leads to like 20,000 indirect jobs that are around supporting that. So it's just an amazing opportunity for us.
Contingent on the site upgrade.
Contingent on, yeah, there's a couple of T's and to cross, like I said, some infrastructure to build and make sure that they can get their employees in and out of there. The site development takes a little time. Those are all things that we can work through.
Governor, with this project coming in, it's close to $700 million. Is there a problem with the fact that the perception will be you're giving more money to one company than the entire amount of tax cuts you proposed here? So what do you tell people when they react to that?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because it's the 698 that's in the LEAD Act. People think we're just giving that to the company, and there's what's called already in statute, there's quality jobs and there's something called investment tax credit. So that's already on the books in Oklahoma. When a company is bringing jobs here, those employees are paying state income tax, right? And so we do this math, and years ago the legislature said, hey, for a period of time we will let a company, if they're bringing high-paying jobs above the median income into the state of Oklahoma, we'll allow them to get reimbursed that income tax piece. And so that's all we've done. If they bring these 3,500 jobs in, this money is ours, we keep it there. If they do that, they would get paid out over the next 10 years if they have those 3,500 jobs. So I can assure Oklahomans, they have to perform. These are net neutral tax-wise to the state of Oklahoma. And remember, they're paying taxes and they're spending $5 billion for dirt contractors and plumbers and electricians and roofers, and they're eating at restaurants. And so when we add all that up, and then they're going to stay here. These factories, you can't pick up and move a 5 million square foot facility. So these are generational impacts for the state of Oklahoma. But it's not like we're writing this check to them. If they come and if their people are paying those taxes, then we go through and we release that over a 10-year period.
I'm sorry, Governor, I honestly thought, I'm trying to read back to the LEAD Act, but I think the incentives you're talking about, aren't those different than the $698 million in the LEAD Act? I mean, that is intended to be paid out as a refund when job and investment thresholds are met. That's different than the other incentives that are already on the books, right?
No, they cannot qualify for both incentives.
They cannot qualify for both.
Correct. So the way we got the math, this is what is very important. The way we got that math was we took the math from those, and then we simply, since we had the $6.1 billion, we decided to pre-fund that. We got into a little bit of trouble, the legislature, way before my time, but the runaway tax credits, refundable tax credits for wind, got away from the legislature, and it was way, way more costly than what they anticipated when they put those into effect back in 2010 or whenever a previous legislature did that. So that was the concern, and they decided that we want to pre-fund that. There's no other incentives. We want to make sure that we don't obligate future, and it doesn't get away from us. So that was capped with those jobs, but I'm just explaining how we came up with the math.
Can we afford your tax cuts, this comprehensive education package that is being discussed between the House and the Senate, tax credits, and all this economic incentives? I mean, there's another company that's looking at coming into Oklahoma as well, that was publicly reported yesterday. Can we afford all this? I mean, what do you say to taxpayers?
Well, 100% we can afford to spend $1.2 billion, okay? Either in a portion of tax cuts or a portion of investments, new investments by raising this base level expenses. And my commitment to Oklahomans is I'm never going to come down here. I'm never going to cut this or raise this above our reoccurring revenue, okay? So how does that look? Of course, we couldn't cut 655 and then all of a sudden spend more and spend $800 million on something else or $1 billion more. So again, that's where the negotiations come in. My plan that I rolled out in the State of the State was this, plus $300 million into education, and we can absolutely afford that. And then flat budgets across the board for other state agencies. So again, the legislature's working through that, and if we invest more in education than the $300 million that I proposed, or more in this or more in that, then they'll have to come. But I think the tax cuts are really, really important to create the momentum. I think Oklahomans can spend their money better than the government, and I want to be on the record. We have to give this back to the consumers and to the taxpayers, because if not now, when? If we don't cut taxes this year, when are we going to do it? We have the savings. We have a budget surplus. It happened last year, and I just keep raising this. Eventually, Oklahomans, how much savings do we need? Let's cut taxes. Let's slow the growth of government.
Governor, just to circle back on what you said about the rating agencies and your meetings with those, you mentioned that they didn't like our oil and gas industry. What's going on with that?
I was kind of making a joke. I first said they loved it, and I caught myself. I love our oil and gas industry, but some of those guys are they love our diversity in our energy mix. And it's something we're proud of as Oklahomans. We're number 2 in wind energy production. We're one of only 4 states that over 45% of our energy comes from renewable sources. So all those things they love. A lot of those guys are from New York and different things. We had great meetings with them, and they love Oklahoma's savings. They love what we're doing. They love our focus on pensions and how we have protected our pension plans in Oklahoma and that liability, and protected our workers and protected our teachers' pension plans. So we've really had a great conversation and some great wins to share with them.
Governor Stitt, just a little live, engagement with some of your officials. Senator reporting just tweeted back at you that the little asterisk on the bottom there is important too. I believe that says not annualized. I can't see it clearly right now, but I was wondering if you could kind of respond to some of the Senate concerns on that portion of this.
Yeah, so not annualized. This is when you pass a bill this year, it would be for just half the year. And then you would double these, but that's what's so confusing, and I don't want to get in the weeds. We're expecting revenue also to go up in 2025 fiscal year. We're already $1 billion over what we projected for this year. So, for last year. We're $1 billion over. So you just get too much in the weeds if I try to explain that and annualize it. But again, I'm committed to not cutting into this number, okay? And so maybe you only can do the grocery tax, or maybe you can do this, but I would sign any tax cut that hits my desk.
Last question.
If I could change topics real quick, I can project. You did not renew the council on the statewide council on homelessness, and I'm not going to sit here and claim that people sitting around a table produce a report that sits on a shelf, moves the needle on things in healthcare or whatever it might be. But I wanted to ask you specifically, in your mind, as the governor of the state of Oklahoma, as we look at homelessness increasing around the country, in the major cities here, even in other areas of the state, what do you believe needs to be done? How do we get more people housed? How do we address this problem that in municipal races all over the state, people identify as the top issue facing their city? What do you think needs to be done, regardless of what a commission exists or not?
Yeah, well, I do need to address that. I was surprised with all the news media. I've never seen a report from that commission. That thing has been in existence for over 20, 25 years. Again, the amount of boards and commissions that just kind of get around and hit the taxpayer, and you pay them for mileage and all this kind of stuff. We needed a fresh set of eyes on there. So some 25-year-old commission I didn't think was moving the needle on homelessness. But that's a big question. I mean, I know that the legislature did a really good job of putting money into mental health. It's something that's a huge focus. We have task force focused on mental health and how we can do that. We passed bills to allow our law enforcement to deliver people to a mental health hospital. We invested in OU's Children's Center. The Griffin Center in Norman, we're going to rebuild. We put $80 million more into that. So a lot of this is mental health issues. These are big-time city concerns, substance abuse, but we've got to get control of our homelessness. And the answer to that is multifaceted, and those are difficult conversations to have. Some of it is state-funded and state-directed as far as the mental health aspect of it. But it's also getting these people the help that they need.
But it's also getting housing, right? I mean, the key to solving homelessness is more people being housed, and you have to have a higher supply of housing, and those are, again, very complicated. I'm not saying you should be able to snap your fingers and make it happen, But I'm curious, like, in your administration, what is next other than just not renewing the commission? Are you relying on other people? Is there something else you'd like to do? Do you want to hear from experts in the field? What do this isn't going away in the next 3 years of your term.
I mean, listen, here's the deal. Building housing, giving people free stuff is not the answer. I mean, you can go look at what other big cities have done to try to house people and build housing or put them up into hotels. People need jobs. People need jobs. They need the mental health. They need mental health that they need. There's the drug addiction, and there's people out there that for whatever reason are refusing to get the help that they need. So we have a lot of nonprofits. We have a lot of churches around this issue. We have investments in mental health. We need to force these folks to get into mental health facilities, but we're not going to allow tents. As long as I'm governor in Oklahoma, we're not going to build housing. We're going to try to get them the help, get them the job that they need. There's so many ants on this ant pile. The investments in career tech, on reskills training is very, very important to me, and how we're investing in our different educational systems. And if you want to get help, we can get you help. But if you don't want to get help, there's not a lot that society can do.